Yeah. So good morning. It's New Year's Eve, and we are on the verge of a new year. Luke is walking. I hope everyone had a good Christmas. They had time with their friends and their family and whoever else they spent time with, and that it was good and well and productive and fun. You may or may not know, but my wife and I actually went home this year for Christmas. And while it was a very busy trip, it was also very good. We got to see some friends, visit with our families, and then we came home and had some rest and our own little Christmas. And then the next day, I came and had an all-nighter with you. So, for those that don't know what that is, we stayed up all night. We had 15 young people in this room. And the room survived. We had lots of time to eat and play games. We had some Nerf war in here, which was a lot of fun. The leaders also survived, for the most part. We had one, Mr. Jason, have a nap, which was funny to watch because he just kind of like passed out with his phone in his hand. And I like bang on the table. He's like, "What?" And then pass back out. So, and then Debbie Sherman, she tapped out at 5 a.m. She's like, "I'm going home." Which was good. She was a trooper for sure. Even I came close to nodding off a little bit. I needed to be playing a game or yelling at somebody to stay awake. So no mustaches were drawn on anybody. Everybody went home with clean faces. Well, relatively clean faces. However, I do feel that we need to apologize to Pastor Lance, because he came in to see how things were going, and as an innocent bystander, got hit by a Nerf ball dart. So he survived as well. I opened today with a recap of the all-nighter because I'm taking preventative measures in case you may or may not find some Nerf darts laying around. I think we did an okay job finding everything, so hopefully you won't. But if you do, just throw it in my office. I'll figure it out later. In my life, I have worked a myriad of jobs, and all of them taught me that you should get ahead of things before they get ahead of you. All those with vehicles know that you should change the oil in it before the engine explodes, because it's kind of redundant after the fact. Or, filling up your car with fuel before a long trip will make your trip nicer because you won't be standing on the side of the road waiting for BCAA to come and get you. Because sometimes they take their sweet time. Preventative measures help to prevent disasters. Like blowing up your engine or standing on the side of the road, those situations can suck. But when I worked in a senior's home, the maintenance manager that I worked for, he said, it's better for us to spend $200 now than to spend $20,000 later on. Because we waited on this, or because we waited on that. Because Band-Aids do not necessarily always solve the problem. When I was thinking about what to share today, this thought kept entering my mind. Why do we not apply this to our faith? So often we get in our own way when it comes to our daily walk with Jesus. We can be hard-headed about things that we disagree with people that are around us, what they're doing, or we can struggle to see the good things that don't look as though they have a bright side. Or we don't really recognize that we need help in this life because we can't do it all on our own. Our lives do not fall apart based on one day or even one decision. It does not happen all at once. It takes time and repeated mistakes over time that come to a point where you have a really big decision to make. No one plans on being an addict. No one plans on being homeless. No one plans on going to hell. If we take a very brief look at Samson, his life did not end on the day that he was captured or the day that he was shaved, or the day that he was blinded. Samson made many decisions through his life that ultimately led to him having to make a very big and very painful, I'm assuming, decision. Because I can't imagine a building falling on top of you feels nice. A decision that could have been prevented by just listening to and trusting in God and his mission for Samson. In doing my research with Samson, I learned something very interesting. The book of Judges, when you read through it, it's a good book because it's part of the good book. Okay, I see it. Wrong crowd. Okay. But the book of Judges itself is a constant repetition of God's people being faithful, messing up, feeling God's wrath, and then being redeemed again. Until the next time that they forget what God has done for them, and the cycle starts all over. Sometimes we do that, forgetting that what God has done in our lives, and returning to our sinful ways when things get easy, when we're comfortable. It is not until we face something hard that we remember Jesus, just like Samson. It's not until things get hard that we're like, oh, Lord, just deliver us from this. When throughout the course of our lives, we should be constantly in prayer. We should be constantly in God's presence, in God's word, because it's a preventative measure. In Ephesians 4:22-24, Paul reminds us that Jesus' words were not warnings, but also kind-hearted reminders. It says in verse 22, "You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." We're reminded very similarly of this in Colossians 3, 5, 8, and 9, James 1:21, 1 Peter 2:1, and the most commonly used, Romans 12:2, which is, everybody knows this one, right? Everyone knows. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Why do we so willingly forget from time to time God's love and sacrifice for us? Well, that is also found in Romans, and also very common. Everyone knows this. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We get so busy in our daily lives that sometimes we forget Jesus was betrayed, beaten, humiliated, and murdered for much less than Delilah was given to betray Samson. Which not only tells us that officials get cheaper as the ages pass, but also that maybe Delilah cared a little bit more for Samson than Judas did for Jesus. This is kind of a scary thought, so I did the math. For those that like math. Jesus was betrayed for the 30 pieces of silver, which in today's market is $865.44 Canadian. Samson was betrayed for 5,500 silver, which is the equivalent of $1,269,316.96. This is a difference of $1,268,451.52. Isn't that crazy? That's bonkers. Where did the value of each life come from? Was Jesus' life not worth more because of all the miracles he had performed in front of Jesus? Why didn't Judas ask for more? Maybe because as the ages go on, officials get cheaper. That's true. In the long run, that's true. Why did he not ask for more, especially assuming he knew the biblical texts? Knowing the history of what had happened with Delilah and Samson, did he forget the fact that he had spent the last years of his life with the Messiah? That Jesus came for his sins, knowing what he knew was going to happen in the end. Did he think for a second about that and the value behind the life that he betrayed for $865.44? Judas clearly was not concerned about preventative measures. He was not concerned about how his life would turn out, but about the there and then. His heart was not right with Jesus because Satan found a way in and allowed for the betrayal that caused Jesus' end. And it wasn't until too late did he realize his folly. When doing research, I found that someone had done the math. Apparently, we're going to be very math-focused today. I got to make everyone happy, okay? Someone did the math about how we spend our lives on average in a week, which is 168 hours. A week is 168 hours of your life. So a third of it, 56 hours, we spend sleeping. A third of it, 56 hours, we spend at work and or school. And then a third of it, 56 hours remains. They got a little more deep into it. The remaining time for some of us, on average, in a week, 17 hours is spent on social media. I know there are people saying, no, not me, I don't believe in that. Well, that's good for you, because some of us exceed that 17 hours. I won't say who. Matthew. This leaves 39 hours. You have 39 hours in a week left over, based on this statistic, left over for free time. In that free time, that's like coffees with people, whatever you enjoy spending your free time on. But they found that for some people, only an hour was spent in the Word. Anybody know where that hour was assigned? Church. Sunday morning. The 1 hour they spend in church is enough for a week, they figure. Do you? Is that sufficient? I am very obviously guilty of spending way too much time on social media. So much that I've put timers on them to shut the program down. My wife showed me how. Only because she had to find the timers to shut them off on her phone. Just saying. No. If we're going down together. One body, right? So the timers are on there, so I don't waste valuable time on it, forcing me to read the Word some more, eat something healthier than a bag of chips, which chips, and talk to my wife. I need more God in my life. That's true. Guess what? So do you. Yeah. See? That's what happens. Yeah. Jesus didn't go through what he went through so that we can only spend 1 hour a week with him. It was so that we could have an everlasting relationship with him, because without him, we die. In John chapter 15, I'll wait for the Pentecostal shuffle. John 15, Jason. Okay, good. Everyone's ready? Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. Excuse me. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. We cannot forget about what God has done for us unless we wish to be thrown into the fire and burned. Jesus' words, not mine. If Jesus is the vine and we are all the branches that are to bear fruit, is an hour a day in a building worshiping the one true God enough to allow us to bear the fruit of joy, love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? No, it is not. For those who like linguistics, when I was writing that out, I was like, I can't say linguini. I can't say linguini. Okay. For those who like linguistics, the word Jesus uses quite a bit in John, in this example of John, is extremely important. The word, everybody, is remain. The Greek word for remain, not romaine, remain is meno. This means to abide in, to dwell in, to live in. Jesus covers all his bases with one word. In short, we are to remain in Jesus. We devote our lives to Jesus because Jesus should be our lives and not just a part of it. Imagine you were, for a second, if you were only to spend 1 hour a week with your children. Parents are like, whoa. 1 hour a week with your children, that's it, as they're growing up. In today's society, you'd be called out for being a bad or neglectful parent. But putting that aside, how would you be able to instill the lessons in your sons and daughters that they need to learn to be productive in their own lives? Simple things that even I took for granted, like changing a tire, or your oil in the car, or putting fuel in the car, are becoming things that the next generation is actually turning to the internet for. As an example of how much time I spend on social media, I would like to share some videos that I have seen recently with you. The first one is a young lady. She had borrowed her dad's truck. She was very proud of herself because she filled it up as she brought it back. We know how this is going to go, but I'm going to keep going. He told him that she loved him so much that she spent the extra money to give him premium fuel with the yellow handle. Everyone knows she put diesel in her dad's gasoline pickup truck. Yeah. The second video was a young man. He's at the gas station asking TikTok why the gasoline handle kept clicking. He's like, I don't understand. Why is it working? Help me, internet. And then as he's doing this, he realizes that if he only puts a little pressure on the handle, it doesn't click. So he's like, oh, I figured it out. He's so proud of himself. 5 seconds later, there is gasoline all over the side of his car, all over the ground. Yeah. We can always fix a car, although it's expensive. Anybody who had to change a fuel tank or a pump or whatever because of cross-fuel contamination knows what that's like. But can we fix what happens to our friends, our family, and acquaintances if we don't teach them to be part of the vine? It is our calling and our purpose while here on earth until the day of Jesus' return. Or we get promoted, whichever one happens first. Today marks the end of 2023. Tomorrow, the beginning of 2024. At this time, usually, or sometimes before, everyone is starting to make their New Year's resolutions. Does anybody have any New Year's resolutions? No? One person? Okay, sweet. We're wise people. Probably because you know what's coming next. People are making their New Year's resolutions that statistically they will either forget or give up on by June, within 6 months. I have made goals for myself, not resolutions. Different. No, not, hopefully not. I would like to spend a little bit more time behind my camera this year. For those that don't know, I like taking pictures. I haven't had it around a lot, so it makes sense that nobody knows that. Spend more time in the kitchen cooking for my family. I'm just going to scoot right past that one. But also, I would like to spend some more time in the Word. Slow down and enjoy the time that I have been given so that I can bear the fruits that God needs me to bear to further His kingdom. I don't ever want to become apathetic to the Word or the people around me. If I do, I see a very hot reception for me when I reach the end of my journey. Besides that, I really don't like the heat. Boyd Bailey wrote this. He said, "Is apathy a problem? Is a problem? It's the enemy of faith. It keeps good people from doing good things. Or maybe you feel inadequate to the task, making you overanalyze the situation. You have an attitude of futility which says nothing meaningful can really be done. Maybe you lack courage. But if we battle all those things and get going for God's glory, He will get done what needs to get done through us." It's a book called The Spiritual Life of a Leader by Boyd Bailey. A lot of this resonated with me because sometimes I tend to overanalyze things. I lack courage. I struggle with futility. But by battling these things, not only by myself, but with God-fearing men and women, some of whom are in this room, some of whom are in different places of the world, I know that I can overcome these obstacles and be a better follower of Christ. And so can you. No matter what obstacle you face, there is always someone in your corner. We as a church are here for you and each other. Please know, whether you're here online, listening to the radio, that you are not alone. There is always someone here for you. I'm going to call up the communion people. Servers, ushers. Here are my final thoughts. Go ahead. Yeah. Tonight we will celebrate the coming of a new year, each in our own ways. Some will be having a good time with their family and friends. Some will be sleeping. We might fall into the sleeping department. I don't know if we'll make it till midnight. And some might even be working. No matter what you're doing or where you are, I pray that you will make Jesus a part of your new year and not forget the reason he came and died for you by June, because it will have disastrous consequences.